guys, this is Bob. Let's go for it. Go for the international news and geopolitics. China number one threat to security, says Sunak. Absolutely true. Proposes to shut Confucius institutes in UK. Plan NATO-style cooperation to tackle Chinese cyber threats. Truss has accused him of being soft on China. China's biggest threat to Britain targeted India, says Sunak. And on the other hand, we are just going to talk. SCO meet ahead of PM trip. Jay Shankar goes to Tashkent. Minister said to meet Wang and Lavrov. I'm just not sure. There's supposed to be no third party involvement, right, in India's foreign policy. But Jay Shankar, you've given in to third party. Lavrov is nothing but a third party. And all the talks we are having with China, he's supposed to set it up for a meeting between Xi and Modi. But here, Biden, Xi to hold talks today as US-China ties worsen. China's opaque loan deals behind Lanka crisis, says US aid hails India. Talks Colombo situation with Indian leaders. Important to India, US to protect pluralism, democracy, individual rights. Chinese spy vessels expected. Lanka entry keeps India on toes. India reacted swiftly to Sri Lanka. It did. Possible Jay Shankar Wang meet may lead to Modi-Xi talks. This is what is important for us to know, right? A, violations by China continue in Ladakh, LAC norms breached. This is the important part, right? And here you see how we've been hammered not only on our border but economically. And this has to be a strategy, Confucius kind of strategy. Vivo laundering a bid to destabilize financial system, says ED. Now this is what ED should be worried about, right? India to deploy second S-400 squadron on China front as PLA jets buzz near LAC. I'm telling you, this is a dud. Sri Lanka asked China for help to restrict fuel imports for a year. Ask China for a help? That's like leaving a wolf in a hen pen, folks, or a thief to catch a thief. Gotabaya likely to return from Singapore. I told you that this Bangladesh is also in trouble. It's out in the news now, also in the foreign policy. Bangladesh seeks 4.5 billion IMF loans as deficit widens. Right? What else did we have? Protest leaders held emergency extended. This is in Sri Lanka, and this is going to be dubious because the people, the players are again the same people that the protesters were against, right? Pakistan, China welcome interested third nations joining CPEC, and India came out very strongly. Third countries in CPEC, India slams China and Pakistan, and that's absolutely right. Now, Pakistan continues to be in trouble, internal turmoil. Parvez Elahi sworn as Pakistan Punjab CM. This is after swearing in Shahbaz, the Prime Minister's son, as CM. Unbelievable scenes all across South Asia. And don't sit sanctimoniously in India thinking that we are safe. We may have problems too, folks. The storm that's coming up of a recession globally is going to hammer us like we don't even know. Cheers. In case of China and India is driven by the Chanakya principle of Dan, Ved, Bhav, Sam. China, on the other hand, is Sun Tzu, and I got a feeling that Sun Tzu's got a leg up on Mr. Chanakya. Well, hey, and what's happening? Russia says its goal is to liberate Ukrainians, so obviously getting some traction on the ground. They're certainly expanding their goal. Russian goal to oust Zelensky, says Lavrov. Ukrainian unbowed, even Russians expected defeat, says Zelensky. And I've got news for Lavrov because these guys are taking them back. Russia-Ukraine seal grain export deal with Turkey and UN. However, Odessa, where the port was supposed to evacuate this wheat, was bombed right after this deal, which is sad. Can't believe Putin, can't believe Xi. EU nations reach deal to ration gas by 15% amid Russian cut-off fears. New missile strike at Black Sea coastal regions, like I said. So this deal to cut down gas of 15% is a lot of pain for European normal common folks, guys. But hey, if you got to bell the cat, you got to go back to World War II, rationing, I guess they're going to have to do that, right? Cheers. And this is actually German stupidity, right? By cutting out the nuclear part of their portfolio, energy portfolio, they cut their own feet, right? In a sense. So, hey, gotta live with it, you gotta live with it. Three cheers. So guys, I'm back to entertain you. Let's just say this, and no matter what, our kite is flying high as far as international politics is concerned. And as New York Times wrote, right, casting itself as the voice of poorer nations affected by sanctions. Now let us see whether Jaishankar and Modi can play the middle game of the fascinating of geopolitical chess in the manner of a grandmaster. He added, or will they falter? Now this is challenging. They have to be grandmasters at this game. Will they be? I don't know. But what's happening? India is playing its cards right here. Delhi to New Middle East. But remember, voice of the poor. Don't let China interfere, because China is definitely not voice of the poor. Delhi to New Middle East. In fact, it's the reason people are getting poorer. Delhi to New Middle East. Biden's trip highlights emerging trends. Delhi, whose policy today is imbued with greater realism, can hopefully discard inherited ideological inertia and realize possibilities awaiting India in the region. It says, for an India that is recasting its engagement in the Middle East, the lessons from US President Joe Biden's trip to Israel and Saudi Arabia are doubly important. Biden's visit highlights not only some new trends that are reshaping the region, but also internal truths about international politics that are lost in the din of public discourse about the Middle East. First, contrary to the popular perception in the US, the region and India, the US is not about to abandon the Middle East. Second, while the US will stay put in the Middle East, it's certainly changing the manner in which it acts. Third, Biden has to modify his sweeping rhetoric about the conflict between democracies and autocracies as the principal contradiction in the world. Fourth, even more consequentially, Biden's visit to Saudi Arabia demonstrated that interests generally tend to triumph over values in the conduct of foreign policy. Important. Fifth, Biden's focus on the national interests found an echo in the Middle East, which is learning to put nation above other identities such as ethnicity and religion. A critical section of the Arabs, long seen as irreconcilably opposed to Israel, are now joining hands with the Jewish state to counter threats to the national security from Iran, and hence you call it I2U2. Biden's fist bump, MBS seeks to reset Saudi ties. Biden embraces two states goal but says ground not right for talks. Saudi Arabia opens skies to Israel flights in win for Biden, and says opening Saudi airspace to Israeli flights is a plus, but an air battle is in the offing. The air battle he's talking about is not a theoretically war. It's talking about fight between airlines to grab this space, and because it's going to get a lot cheaper, these overflights, Al Al is going to start flying now. Good for everybody, folks. Good for everybody. Cheers. Partnerships and acronyms, I2U2, AUKUS are being thrown out like like you change your shirt on a daily basis. This just shows the kind of churn that's happening in international affairs, right? And now AUKUS and the other one, which is the Quad, are all know in the back of their minds they may have many other goals. The front and center is China. Similarly, it's really funny. And in the case of I2U2, while for India it's all about technology and all the other trade, etc. But for the other three, it's about Iran. So let's say I2U2 reflects new geopolitical realities for all four nations, written by Dhruv Jaishankar. There is a strategic logic in the coming together of India, Israel, the US and the UAE. It comes at a time when relations among the countries are growing, but trenchant disagreements on great power politics linger. Developing the partnership from the ground up will be key. More importantly, the coming together of these four countries reflects some new realities. One, bilateral relations among all four have thickened in recent years to the point of they're enjoying broad-based partnerships. Two, I2U2 reflects new geopolitical shifts. US ties with Israel and the Gulf Arab states have a long history, and India's relations with Israel have grown since the 1990s, and especially after the Abrahamic Accords. Right? Three, there is a further imperative on the part of Abu Dhabi, Jerusalem, and New Delhi, keeping the US regionally engaged. That's the important part, right? And then you come, why Iran? Maybe the strategic glue of I2U2, the reality. By Chirayu Thakkar. India's participation in I2U2, the group including Israel, US, UAE, has sparked frenzied speculation in some circles. Some insist the group is not a West Asia Quad, ruling out any security cooperation and say India should remain careful that the shared threat perception of the remaining three partners vis-a-vis Iran does not upset New Delhi's healthy ties with Tehran. Prime Minister Modi's remark on a positive agenda with six focus areas underscores the I2U2 is not a threat-driven alliance. Nonetheless, akin to the Indo-Pacific Quad, which has one eye on non-security cooperation and the other on brewing maritime challenges, the I2U2 has one eye on the collective potential for trade and technology, while the other on the altering geopolitical landscape of West Asia. Despite India's reluctance to give any anti-Iran connotation to I2U2 for now, Tehran's tilt towards Beijing, its nuclear program, and practical cooperation with New Delhi will determine the extent of I2U2's strategic orientation. And here again, like China, Iran will be its own worst enemy if it throws India out. India's push to boost Africa ties 222 LOCs worth 14 billion. Delhi has extended food. So when you're expanding the Middle East, Africa becomes critical. Time for India-Africa to discuss trade pact, says Commerce Secretary. Absolutely right. Humongous potential to throw China out, and especially now China seems to be preoccupied with what's happening internally within China. Cheers. No matter which grouping one looks at, whether it's AUKUS, whether it's Indo-Quad, whether it is I2U2, the US has a centrality, and that's why when Frank Aslam says India-US should look at deepening defense ties, absolutely. In conclusion, the India-US defense partnership is indeed strengthening. The Khanna Amendment provides an excellent platform to make the partnership even stronger. It will accomplish this by enabling India to buy the time necessary to diversify its defense acquisitions without compromising the country's immediate security needs. It represents a win-win for both the US and India. One hopes that NDAA is signed soon so that India and the US can come together to make their defense partnership even stronger. Absolutely. And you know that we are on the same page. Now look at it. India, Biden talking to Xi, then you have a meeting between Lavrov and Wang Yi and Jaishankar looking to have Modi talk to Xi, and then you have this. US Senate OK's bill to boost computer chip production, 280 billion, and then on the back of that you have this. Vedanta says semicon business can rake in 3 billion annually. They are setting this up in Maharashtra with Foxconn, and the Taiwan group, the chip group is in India too. Negotiate. It's time we bought Taiwan out of the closet, right? How will India-Japan ties evolve after Abe? This is Titli Basu. Moving forward, economic security and strategic technologies should be front and center in the bilateral agenda. True. The security agenda will only get tighter as the China conversation deepens between these two Asian democracies, standing against any unilateral change in status quo. And also, as far as the nuclear issue is concerned, both are rethinking. That's the important part. Same time, Raja Mohan, the nuclear response. Japan and India are beginning to rethink ambivalence on the nuclear threat from China. With partners, they can form credible deterrence. And this is where infras comes in, right? The infras agreement between India, France and the US would be even more ambitious than AUKUS, in which the US, UK have agreed to help Australia build nuclear-powered submarines. As a sense, unlike Australia, India is a nuclear weapon state. Tellis is calling both India and Washington to reconsider entrenched nuclear assumptions in the two capitals. While the resistance to his ideas will be strong, Delhi and Washington will have to respond sooner than later to the dramatic changes in the global environment triggered by the rise and assertion of China. Meanwhile, the US and Japan are moving swiftly to rework their strategies to deter China. While Japan's priority is to transform its conventional forces, India might need to consider both conventional and nuclear modernization. And if the blessing is there from the United States, I say we go for it. Otherwise, we are absolutely falling behind in the shifting global scenario. Daily new acronyms for partnerships being put together just shows there is a position possible for India to be part of this multipolar world. How we play the cards, are we as successful as Sun Tzu has been so far, or does Chanakya get a foot in? Only time will tell, folks. But The opportunity is absolutely there, as also all the dangers that now the world is facing because of Ukraine and Russia, the inflation and the recession. 3 cheers and Jai Hind.